Guys, welcome to 2026 on the podcast. I started this podcast in January of 2017. I literally can't believe how long it's been since I've been doing the show. It's absolutely crazy. It's truly a blessing to be able to present this podcast to you guys, to build this brand. I want to say thank you to all those who have ever tuned into the podcast. And to kick off this year, as we go into year 10 of the podcast, is a coach for Layton Christian Academy, Coach Casey Stanley. I got the opportunity to call one of his games in a play-by-play broadcasting setting for the Pro Image Sports Holiday Classic out of Owyhee High School. And they came down here and they won the tournament, but it was awesome getting to watch them. They're an international school, 15 players from 15 different countries. And so I was very intrigued with Coach Stanley's, whole history, who he was, what's his coaching, resume. And today we get the opportunity to talk to him, not only about Layton Christian, but also talking about his previous experience at the college level coaching, and just kind of seeing some of the tips and tricks and what we should expect from the school, what we should, what he's going through as a coach, the way that he thinks, the way he processes information, the way he plans for games. And really excited to bring this one to you guys. But again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. 2026 is upon us. We got big things planned for the podcast. Get ready. This is the Gametime Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time!
This is the Gametime Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Gametime Guru podcast. My name is Shane Larson, host of the show. Super excited to be here with you guys. It's 2026, first interview of the year. This is now, I've completed 9 years of running this podcast, interviewing sports figures from all over the globe, building this out. Thanks in large part to all of you who have tuned in over the last 9 years, whether you've listened to one episode, multiple episodes, maybe you've followed me on YouTube, maybe you followed me on social media, maybe you've shared it with somebody. If this is your first time, welcome aboard. I appreciate you guys tuning in to hear the stories. I would always encourage you guys to hit that follow button, hit the subscribe button on whichever platform that you're listening on, so that you guys can tune in, listen to other interviews I've done, listen to interviews in the future, take notes, because they're super helpful for a lot of people, athletes, parents, youngsters that are looking to get into the sports world. You can learn a lot from our guests on the show. So thank you to everybody for tuning in, joining us on the podcast today. It's like you guys heard in the introduction, a super awesome opportunity for me to chat with somebody who I got to call the games for. I got to call 2 games for when they were here in Meridian, Idaho, where I reside in the Treasure Valley of Idaho, for a tournament at Owyhee High School. And I'm really excited to bring him on. His name is Coach Casey Stanley from Layton Christian. Coach Stanley, thanks for joining the show, man.
Shane, I appreciate you having me. I really enjoyed, watching the games back and listening to your broadcast. Made watching film a little bit more entertaining. So I appreciate the job you did and the positive things you had to say about our program, and just the professionalism you brought to that broadcast.
Well, I appreciate you, man. Yeah, couldn't pronounce the names very well, but I already expected that.
It's okay. Neither can I. It's all right.
You even sent me, you did some really good work in sending me the pronunciation of everything too. Like, you sent me voice samples of everything. And I'm like, man, I struggled with the names. So, but I had a really good time watching the program. And I want to, before I get into that too, I want to rewind the clock a little bit, Coach, and just kind of get to know you as a coach. Looking into your history, you've got quite the experience, collegiate level. I mean, multiple years of coaching. And so let's talk a little bit about that. What is your experience in the coaching? Well, what got you into coaching, so to speak? Were you playing? Did you have a dad that was a coach, or somebody that was a coach? Like, what got you into the field of coaching?
So it's honestly, it's an interesting story. My father was a radio announcer for Iona College when I was a little kid, and he did it for about 25, 30 years. And when I was a little kid, he used to bring me around, the program, and he'd be doing the games, and I'd hang out and I'd be the ball boy. And I was 6 years old. And, it's funny. It's like most kids want to grow up and, be firefighters or something like that. And I just wanted to be a college coach from when I was 6 years old on. And I would just watch these guys. I'm like, man, their entire job is basketball. So from that age, I made a decision at 6 years old that, I was either going to be a college basketball coach or I was going to be a Ghostbuster. And the ghost busting part did not work out, but fortunately I was able to have a 15-year career over there, and it's kind of propelled me now to my 3 years here at Layton Christian.
Wow. So 15 years at the collegiate level too. Like, talk to me about that. Like, what goes into the day-to-day of a coach at the collegiate level? Like, what are the different responsibilities that one must, take on as a coach at that level?
Yeah, it's a tremendous amount of hours, tremendous amount of stress. Like any kind of profession, I think you got to work your way kind of from the ground up. When I first started, I was making very little money. I was sleeping on one of my best friend's couches. He was helping me out there, and I was doing kind of the grunt work. Kind of any profession you start at, you got to be willing to work hard and do jobs nobody wants to do, and prove yourself kind of worthy to get the opportunity to do a little bit more. And I was fortunate to work for some great bosses.
That's super cool. Like, talk to me about, I guess, one of your favorite. Like, I always like to ask people this that have been in have kind of worked up the ranks. They have to kind of start at the bottom of their career, trying to learn and just take it all in and do the job, even when it's not sexy, so to speak. Tell me one of your favorite memories and one of the things you learned from doing the grunt work. Just kind of figuring that out as you went.
And honestly, it's funny because I don't think it ever got sexy. It's 15 years at the highest level, and you're still doing grunt work. And I think the biggest thing, and it's not like me to wax poetic, and I don't know who I am to give advice to anybody, but it's almost like you gotta be willing to do whatever. You have to have no ego. It's funny now. It's because even now as a high school coach, and I'm the head coach, but obviously it's ingrained in me 15 years. All right, what needs to be done, and I don't care who does it. And it's you do whatever. We're about to make a tournament run out to California now, and today I went to Costco to make sure all the boys had snacks. And it's like, you don't realize how much goes into the basketball world and how much goes into running a successful program. And I worked for Coach Pitino for many years, and I worked for Kevin Willard, who's the head coach of Villanova, for many years, and I worked for Kevin Keats, who took NC State to a Final Four. I worked for Richard Pitino, who is the head coach of Xavier. I worked for all these guys, and what really stood out to me about them is they have no ego, and no job is too small for them, and they're not looking to pass something off. And hey, I don't want to do this, so I'm going to have somebody else do it. Now they take the bull by the horns, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to be successful.
Man, so interesting, because I was going to ask you what was something that you learned from being around some of the bigger names, and you just mentioned it. They didn't have an ego. That's hard to do when you are successful. It's just when you're successful at anything, you would just expect people to kind of have that, but it sounds like they did not. And so that's something to take with you.
It's funny because it's like you yourself, who's accomplished nothing in the business, can have an ego if Rick Pitino, who's in the Hall of Fame, is willing to do it. You can't say, I'm not going to do that. If Rick Pitino, who's a Hall of Famer, has done it and is willing to do it again, who are you as a 28-year-old in the business be willing to say anything to him?
Interesting. No, I feel you on that. Being in the collegiate game for as long as you were, just coaching in a variety of areas. Talk to me about some of the better athletes. I mean, I'm sure you were around some really high-level athletes in the basketball world. What was something that stood out to you about those athletes? What was a common, I guess, skill or attribute of those athletes that competed at a very high level?
When you get to that level, there are a million guys who are high level. Like, everybody is high level, or else they wouldn't get there. It's number one, the dedication, but even number two, the ego part of it too is it kind of touches on what you were just saying. Is like, hey, listen, from where I came, from my high school spot, I took 25 shots a game, and all they asked me to do was score the ball. Well, now I get to this high level. Well, everybody can score the ball. So what else can you do? Can you defend? Can you pass? Are you willing to rebound? Are you willing to do all that stuff? And that's what helps you propel, because eventually even the best players in the world are going to hit a level where, okay, they're no longer the top two or three guys. So they got to be willing to be team players and be, a puzzle piece that you could fit in. And that's something that those guys realize at a very young age.
Interesting. I think that's a super important concept that, I've noticed it myself, coach, when, coaching club ball, and I would coach the last 5 years, I was coaching either the 16U or the 17U or the unsigned seniors who were 18, if they were unsigned. And so a lot of them, going into the collegiate world, whether even if it's junior college, they notice that, like, I try to explain that to them, that they're not going to be the best at what they're doing. They better be able to accept that and be able to find the role that they're good at. Because, in Idaho, there's not everyone's a Owyhee High School, right? And that's just the reality of it. There's a lot of top like players out here that play for other schools, but those schools, they're smaller schools, and that's what it is. So when they get to college, they're going to be around some people that can do the same thing. And I think a lot of them struggle with that transition, not understanding that they're going to have to like put their ego down and realize that they're going to have to find a different role sometimes. And that's okay to be able to do that. I want to know, like, so working over in the schools that you worked for, how did you get over to Layton Christian Academy in Utah?
Yeah.
I wondered that, like, how did that happen?
So, I would say for the final couple of years of my college career, I was at a stage where my wife and I, we're newlyweds, and I wanted to be married, and I love her very much, and I want to spend time with her. And then we were going to start having a family, start having children. And it's so hard in college coaching because you work 12 hours a day, at least 7 days a week, sometimes more. 6 months out of the year, you're probably staying in a hotel room. So if you want to be present in your marriage, if you want to be present in your children's lives, to me, college coaching is extremely difficult to do that. I am very dedicated to my job, so I'm not very easily turn it off. I'm going to give everything I got all the time. So it was something where I kind of wanted an outlet. I wanted a kind of a different career, but I'm probably what you'd classify as a basketball junkie. I have no hobbies. I have no friends. It's my family and it's basketball. Those are the two things I care about. So it was going to be a really tough transition for me to coach a small high school where these kids are doing it for hobbies. That would be really tough because it truly is my life. So I was kind of weighing a bunch of different options, and Coach Patino actually had a friend who knew about Layton Christian. It's such an interesting deal because it's an all-international school. So pretty much I'd say 300 kids go to the school. I bet you we only have 20 Americans in the whole deal. So there was a coach before me who did a fantastic job. His name was Bobby Porter, won multiple state titles, and did a great job. And the school was able to use his name to attract kids to come to school. Who wanted to play basketball. Hey, you want to come to America? Well, we've got a great coach. Come here and experience America. Well, the school, I think, was a little nervous that, hey, this coach with this great resume is retiring after 30 years. And I mean, he earned his retirement, I'll tell you that. So they ended up kind of looking for guys with more long-term resumes and, not just the average high school coach. So it kind of fit both of us. And, I found from the beginning, their commitment to how good they want to be and how they want to grow the program and the support they give. I learned right away how good of a job this was and how supportive they were. I tell them all the time, it's really great because what makes a great job to me is when you have a problem or an issue or something you want to bring up, you go to the school, and if it's a not so great job, the first thing they will tell you is, oh, well, we can't do it, or we don't have the money, or we've never done it like that before. Layton Christian is special because their first reaction is, well, we've never done that, but here's how we could do it. Or, hey, have you thought about this? Or, they work to try to figure out the best way to build it because that's what they want to do. And I'm tremendously blessed to be around administrators that see the big picture.
That's so awesome, man. And it totally makes sense too. You want to go somewhere as well. Like it's not just a hobby. Like these are guys who are wanting to move forward. It's pretty cool. And those are some big shoes to fill over there too. It's a school that's got some success. I guess coming with that though, how do you handle the pressures, coach, of like coming in there and just understanding, giving respect to those who have laid the foundation, but also saying, okay, I have the confidence and the abilities to keep this thing rolling on the right tracks.
Well, I'll say this. I'll say the school has done a fantastic job of never putting the pressure on me at all. They want to win, but that's not their first and that's not their first level of business. That's not what they want to accomplish. A big thing, it's a Christian school, and so they want to bring in kids, and it's attached to a church, and they want to be able to open up different kids and different ways of life to the church. So that's their big mission, and they want to do it through basketball, and they want to win some games. The pressure comes, I'd say 99% internally, because I put a tremendous amount of pressure on myself, because I want to win. I want to be great. When I make a mistake in a game, it eats me alive until I get to the next game. When I've done something in practice that causes us to lose a game, i.e., we haven't worked on this press breaker, that's the first thing I'm doing. And I'm rewatching our film, and I'm thinking about ways I can improve as a coach and ways I can get better. So the pressure is internally, and I think that motivates me to be great. People laugh at me. I've never gone into a game in my entire life where I thought I was going to win. Every game I've ever thought about, or I've ever gone into, I've thought about all the ways that we are going to lose, all the reasons we are going to lose, points I still need to make, coaching points, things in the game, adjustments I can make. I'm in a constant state of panic, thinking about every possible scenario that could go wrong, so I'm ready for it. So everybody jokes with me. The people that know me jokes, hey, I know you're going to lose tonight by 50, but in case you don't lose by 50, so that's my mindset is, I'm consistently putting pressure on myself, consistently thinking about things that we need to improve on as a team. And right now, fortunately, we're 10-0, but I feel like we're 0-10, and we got to get better. So
interesting though, I talk to a lot of business owners in my full-time work in the marketing profession, and just talking to business owners in that space, they've said very similar things to what you just said. Their coach is like, they have a successful business, but they're like, no, I know all the things that can go wrong. This could be over tomorrow. Like, this could be over tomorrow if I don't do X, Y, and Z. And it's always like, it's not that they're never satisfied. It's just more so they are always preparing for what could go wrong, because they've seen what could go wrong. They've been that's been part of their they've seen when the businesses were at zero. They've seen where it's gotten to be successful. So they know that it can be at zero again if they're not careful and, taking care of all these things. And so it's kind of similar to what you just mentioned there. Just always being prepared for, almost having that anxiety, so to speak, just that constant state of like, okay, we got to do this. Because the team's riding high, but there is a lot of area of opportunity. That's for anybody, for any organization, for any team, whatever. That's interesting. Just hearing that, one of the things that got brought up on the broadcast between myself and my partner, Michael Johnson, and then even the next night with Coach AJ Niebergall and Coach Mike, who were doing the championship game, was regarding the international school. You mentioned it's all international players, 15 players, 15 different countries is what you had texted me with the rundown of the team. The language barrier, is there one, or do they all speak English fluently?
I wouldn't. Fluently is strong. Every year we'll get one or two guys. My first year, I had a young man from France who's at Eastern Washington right now, who came in, and I would say his English was very weak. I was constantly talking to him through Google Translate.
Oh, wow.
Thankfully, on the bench, I had Google Translate. Someone had a phone, Google Translate. We'd hand it to him for timeouts. I'd give them the scouting report. I would use Google Translate and translate it to French. I also had a kid. He was from an African country, but he spoke French. And I would constantly be yelling at this kid through his best friend. I would say, would you tell him? And then I could tell he was softening up the message. I'm like, no. Don't be nice. Tell him exactly what I'm saying. So, and one thing I learned was his French, the African kid's French was not as strong as the native French speaker's French. We got his French better in the process. But, it was funny. It took about 3-4 months, and we were at a tournament. We were at the Tarkanian, and he was in the house. We rent Airbnbs everywhere we go. And we were in the house, and all of a sudden I heard him speaking English, and my jaw hit the ground. I'm like, whoa, you speak English now? So it was amazing. Through immersion, the kid became like literally totally fluent in 3-4 months. And I have a kid on this year's roster. Last year I had a kid who's from a Arabic speaking country. His was only okay. And then obviously he's gotten better. And then this year I have a kid from a Russian speaking country that occasionally, I don't know if it's so bad that they don't speak English. It's when it's being yelled at them in a shrill New York accent very quickly. I don't know if they always pick it up. But that's every year or two we'll have a guy who's got to get better. But for the most part, English is a good common language for all of them.
Man, that is so impressive to me. As somebody like myself, I served a mission for my church in Brazil back in 2008 to 2010. And so I speak Portuguese, but I remember learning the language was super hard for me, man. It took me 7 months to become fluent. And man, it was hard. It was hard to pick up another language. So that's always something that's so intriguing to me when other people are speaking different languages. It's not their native language. But one of the things that stood out to me, Coach, about your guys' program, just watching you guys play on the court, one, you're huge. Okay. Like I remember standing on the court where you guys were warming up. I want to say you guys played Jay Sarah, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember off the top of my head, but not only them, but I'm like, dude, okay, I'm 6'2", 230, 240. I'm like, dude, I'm not a small person, but I'm like, dude, I felt tiny out there. And then I see you guys warming up on the court. I'm like, dude, everyone's freaking huge. There was a time where I believe you guys had like a 6'8", 6'7", 6'5", 6'4", 6'4", or something like that lineup. Everybody was over 6'4", and I'm like, and your wingspans, everybody's just like, just the court shrinks because of the size out there. But one of the things that stood out to me, though, outside of the size, was the communication. Like you guys were able to make your adjustments. You were able to rotate on defense. You were able to communicate. And even if English isn't your first language, you guys were at least communicating properly with one another to get to the right rotations and do the thing. And so I guess talk to me about that. How do you instill that communication? Or is that just simply an expectation? If these players want to go play at the next level, that is the standard. That's the expectation that you have.
Everything we do in our program is done with college in mind. In my 2 complete years, we've had 19 guys get scholarships in 2 years. Wow. That is everything I do. Is we are a college program run at a high school, and at least in my eyes, with my expectations. So if guys are not communicating, if guys are not defending, if guys are not playing hard, they can't be here. So that's something that I think that the culture the guys pick up, and they've also played a lot of high-level basketball themselves. I mean, they played for their country's national team, which is it's no small potato. So they've been in big stages. They've been coached by really good coaches before who have had that expectation. So it's kind of ingrained into them. But that's something that we are constantly harping on, especially defensively. That's something that we hang our hat on, and something that makes us unique, I think, from a lot of international programs. Sometimes, even Europeans, I joke with my team all the time, they just want to outscore you. But we're definitely defensive motivated.
That's super cool. I was going to ask you about that too. Just the foreign countries of basketball, like there are a lot different styles of basketball. I talked to a lot of European players. I talked to people that are playing overseas in different countries. There's a lot of Americans that struggle because of the different style of basketball, team basketball, ball movements a little bit faster. Everybody gets a piece of the pie type of deal in some countries. And I was going to ask you, having coached players from all over the world, do you notice there's different styles of basketball. Do you notice any struggles with that as they come in here and try to play together as a unit?
No, I mean, it does take, I would tell you now, this being my 3rd year, it takes us time as a team to gel. Typically we don't start playing basketball till mid to late December really well. Those first couple 3-4 weeks are usually a struggle. So I'm hoping right now we start to peak a little bit and start playing really well. Not really till January are we consistently really playing well. But that's something that, talking about ball movement, we pass the ball extremely well. And I constantly refer to that as our superpower. That's the thing that we do so differently than kind of a lot of American teams do. They don't move the ball as well. They don't pass the ball as well. And sometimes we get into this mode where we try to play like them. And I'm like, why are we fighting? You know, I said it's like the beginning of the movie where the superhero doesn't know he's the superhero yet, and he's not embracing his powers. We need to embrace our powers. We need to embrace our ability to move the ball, because that's what we need to accept, that we're different, accept that we're unique. Let's not try to beat them at their own game. Let's try to make them play our game. And that's moving the basketball.
You know what's awesome, Coach, is like, so we had to play a junior college team in a club basketball tournament last year, which I have my own opinions on that too. But junior college team, bunch of junior college sophomores and freshmen, a couple of them that had gotten D1 offers to Sac State. Anyway, we end up in this tournament with them. I got my unsigned seniors in this unsigned seniors division, but they were bringing a JUCO team down, and they played in California. Anyway, we were playing them. They're monsters, huge. My guys, like, dude, they're just not big. But I did tell them, like, we're not going to beat them one-on-one. These are the types of teams you can't beat one-on-one. Like, we're not going to do that. Like, that's just not who you are. You're not fast enough for it. Let's just be real. But I always preach the whole concept of making the ball the most athletic guy on the court. Like, if you can, they can be as big as they want. They can be as fast as they want. But the ball, as long as you know how to pass it properly and fast and hard and do it.
I'm going to steal that terminology. I like that. That's a good one. I like that one.
Making the ball the most athletic guy on the court. Like, just the ball moves faster than anybody if you do it right. And so you can always get the ball moving around if you do it right. And so that's what we had to do against that team. We ended up beating them by 1, which was a crazy game. And it's a full story on that. But I've always thought that too. Like, just play your game. If you get the right ball movement, you get the team camaraderie there. Like, you get the open shots. Everybody gets a piece of the pie. It's always fun. Looking at this school, the other question I had, so a lot of listeners that I have are in Utah. I have a lot of family down there, so I had a lot of people that started listening from Utah, and then it's expanded since. But I also have a lot of listeners here in Washington, the whole Northwest, really. Although it's in all 50 states and all across the globe right now, this is a big focal point. A lot of people don't realize, like, that they wonder. They get used to the Idaho style of basketball, where it's like, how do these teams keep going? Like, how do they afford to play in these tournaments and travel? I'm curious, with it being an academy, is that part of the fees that they pay to play at that school? Do you guys have to do fundraisers? How do you guys get to play against such good talent across the instead of just like, and then going into conference play, so to speak? How do you get to play the non-conference schedule against so many great teams?
Yeah, no, that's that's just what you touched on. You know, obviously, that's part of the tuition that they pay. And then also fundraising is a big part of it too. You know, it's arguably we had definitely we had a top 10 schedule in the country last year. Arguably we're going to have a better schedule this year. And that's part of it. If these guys want to be seen, if these guys want to get the opportunity to play in college and improve and get better and get their name out there, you know, we got to go around and we've got to challenge ourselves. And we try to do that by playing such a tough schedule.
So you hit 50 wins. I meant to say this earlier. You hit 50 wins. Saw the announcement just a little bit ago, right? Just hit your 50 wins in your career. Talk to me about that. Like, I know you said you're always in a state of panic. What can go wrong? You know, I'm sure you say, probably feel like you had 50 losses instead of 50 wins or something, right? But if you look at it and you had 50 wins in your career thus far, what's the biggest lesson you've learned in those 50 wins?
You know, the one thing that I don't do a great job of, and I got to get better, but we work so hard. I mean, we're practicing 6 days a week. We do doubles a lot. They're lifting, they're doing skill work, all that stuff. Sometimes I hold myself to this artificial standard. Like, hey, we just don't, not only do we got to win the game, we got to look good winning the game. We got to win the game by 20 for me to be happy. Right. And then, okay, we lost by 12 and I lock myself into how frustrated I am about the things we did wrong. Well, it's a game. Naturally, we're going to do things wrong. You know, it's you're playing good teams, so you're going to make your mistakes. I've had to get better. I've had to improve. I still have to improve of embracing wins, regardless of how we looked. And that's not saying we don't got to get better from wins, you know, but in the moment, sometimes we work so hard that I've got to separate myself from that and say, hey, look, were we perfect? No, I'm chasing a perfect game. We did not play a perfect game, but we won the basketball game. We did a lot of good things. These are still 16, 17, 18-year-old kids who are giving me 30, 40 hours a week, you know, between practice and film and travel and all that stuff. And we've got to celebrate this win. I forgot who it was. Somebody was talking about hugging a win. You got to hug the win. I got to hug the win more. I've got to enjoy it more than just measuring myself up to these artificial standards that we consistently do.
You know what, Coach? I'm going to sniff that for a social media clip and on my LinkedIn. I promise you right now. That right there should be a business tip for all leaders, not just for basketball coaches. It should be for all leaders. Hug the win.
Hug the win.
Stop and smell the roses every once in a while, and like appreciate those. I love that. So moving forward, like seeing where you've been, the collegiate game, now you're in the high school realm. You mentioned earlier, wanting to spend more time being present with your wife and your family. That's why you're at the high school level. Do you ever see yourself in the future? Obviously, right now you're in the present. Do you ever see yourself going to the collegiate game, or you happy where you're at in this moment?
I've had more fun this last 2.5 years than I've had in my entire career. I enjoy it. I love it. I look forward to it. I love being home. I love being able to have flexibility with my schedule. We had a practice last week, and it was the same day that my daughter had her first dance recital. I mean, she's only 3. I would say dancing is strong. It was more like spinning around in a circle.
Yeah.
But she had a recital, and I was able to move things around and make sure I was sitting there front row, which is something that if I was in the college game, I don't think I would be. I've had opportunities these last 2 years to go back, and I'm appreciative of those opportunities. I'm happy where we are right now. I'm happy with what we're building. Putting my name on this is great too. I loved my time, but being an assistant coach is hard sometimes. There's a lot of things that you do that you don't always agree with, or there's a lot of things that you have to do that isn't your main goal. So, I'm loving everything I'm doing right now.
I freaking love that too. All right, my last little bit before we wrap this one up. I know you've played against some good talent at the high school level, right? And I have a lot of high school athletes that listen to this podcast, a lot of parents of high school athletes that listen to this podcast. And I want to know this. I asked you a similar question about like some of the high-level athletes in college, but who's one of the best players you've played against as a high school coach thus far, and what stood out to you about that player?
I'm telling you, if I sit here and try to list in our 3 years who we've played against, it is tremendous. Last year we beat Tyron Stokes, who's the #1 player in the country. We beat him in a game. He's obviously an immensely talented kid. You know who blew me away though, and excuse because I'm bad with names. The point guard for Owyhee. What's his name?
Logan Hosfai. Are you talking about the lefty?
He was such a mentally tough kid. I was so impressed with not only obviously his skill set, he's tremendously skilled, but that kid is so unbelievably tough and resilient. And, like to be everybody he's going to play against, this year, he's going to be the first name on their scouting report. And it's going to be like, all right, how do we stop this kid? But that kid just never stops going and has so much confidence in his ability. And you see, obviously he doesn't have unbelievable size, and we're trying to swallow him up with all our length, and he's still getting angles, and he's still coming, and he's still competing. I was blown away by that kid. And Utah Valley got an amazing one, and he is that kid. Trust me, we've seen a lot of talent. That kid's right there. And to be able to watch the success that Owyhee team had in Hawaii this past week, following them and getting that win over Harvard Westlake is a testament to not only that kid, but obviously Coach Andy's phenomenal. You guys don't know how good you have it. You really don't. Listen, there's one thing to watch a guy from afar and say, man, this guy's running a really good program. When you're embroiled in a game like that and he is taking you to the woodshed, you get even more of an impression of that. I felt trapped in that game. I had nowhere to go. And he's a phenomenal coach, runs a great program, and it was a real pleasure to be a part of it.
No, that's really cool to hear, man. Andy's a good friend of mine. I really respect him as well, just as a coach and as a friend. And, it's funny that you said, Coach, I really appreciate you sharing that about Logan. I've watched him and his training. I got to shout out his trainer, Keyshawn Liggins. I got to shout out his coaches, too. I've just been around him since he was a freshman. It's actually since he was in 8th grade. Just kind of he was the name around here when he was in 8th grade. And we're like, oh, who's this kid? I mean, I was surprised to see him continue to do it, but he works. So Logan Hosfai, he works. He's one of those kids. He gets up. I'll be doing my shooting workout, and I'll be doing some basketball workouts, and he'll show up to the gym right after. I mean, he's early riser before school. He gets his work in. He doesn't He doesn't shy away from working. So it's kind of cool to see, him being recognized, and I'm sure he'll appreciate that as well. He comes from a good family. He works hard. He's had to work for it. It didn't just come easy. So I appreciate you saying that about him.
It's not just the skill, the level of toughness and competitiveness that kid had. And I've seen, obviously, I've seen them play before. I watched film from last year. I did all that stuff leading up to our game, but seeing it in person, it's as a basketball junkie, it is fun to watch. Going against him is not that fun. Just so you know. Okay, I've already done the math. There is a 12% chance we play Owyhee again this week in the Damien Classic. Just so you know, if that happens, like we're going to get a flat tire on our bus or something. I'm not playing that game again. I will not. Something will happen. We'll go down with the flu. We're not playing that game. I'm not going against Coach Andy again. I'm not going against Logan again. We're not doing that again.
Oh, I love it, man. I love it. That was a great matchup, though. So
never again. Never again.
You want to watch that. You want those matchups.
Never again.
Well, Coach, I really do appreciate your time. I want to give you the rest of the night to go hang out with your family. I just want to say thank you. Just thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing it. I'm going to be watching your program from here on out. And if there's anything you ever need from me, hit me up at any time. But I truly just want to say thank you for joining the podcast, man.
Great. I appreciate it. Anytime you want me to hop back on, hopefully we make a run to Chipotle this year. And, that's in March. Hopefully you're going to want me to hop on again. So
heck yeah.
I appreciate you did a great job on our games. And, that's the other thing, besides the fact that the tournament was so well run, there's the support, how much basketball means in that area was really, really fun. It was a cool venue for our guys to see, obviously, coming from different countries, they want to experience playing against high-level teams, but they also want to experience the Americana of going and playing a true road game against a really good basketball team and in a community that really cares about basketball. And I've gotten so many messages from people from that area who discovered our program, but just true lovers of the game who just want to compliment us. And it was a great experience, that tournament.
Oh, man, I'm so glad you had a good time here and that everybody took care of you and came out with the dub, man. That's what I'm saying. So came over here, got it done. I'm glad everyone was respectful because you got a fan in me too. So there's a lot of us basketball fans that are really, really appreciative and excited to follow your program. So I appreciate you, Coach, and I appreciate everybody listening. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the show, and we're kicking off another year of this podcast. This is year number 10. Can't believe we've been doing this for almost 10 full years. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in. We'll be coming to you next week with another one. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.